We have a lot to get through, and most of all, we have an absolutely excellent speaker tonight that I am really looking forward to hearing from. So I hope that as you've been sitting here, that you have noticed that we have some events coming up. We ain't buying it. We're encouraging people from November 27th to December 1st to not purchase things from Amazon, Target, Home Depot, is it? Yep. That's one thing. The other is Giving Tuesday. Consider donating to Indivisible Greater Grand Rapids as a donation. We also have a coat drive. There will be more information, so stay tuned on our Facebook page or stay tuned on our Substack that comes out every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. We're going to have a social on December 11th at 6:30 at Broadleaf. Please feel free to join us. We'll just sit and chat and have a good time and get to know each other. And Feeding America Volunteer, we have slots for how many more people, Mary?
I think 6 more.
We need 6 more people. We can only take 10 from 1 to 3 in the afternoon to go help put. Okay, there's a warehouse in Kentwood and putting food together for food banks. And then we have a Zoom webinar. I'm also looking forward to it. Dr. Isley will be talking about economics and our current economic situation. That will be a webinar. And lastly, we have our Monday meeting for our members and friends on the 26th, and it will be packed with all sorts of information about what we plan on doing for the whole year. We will have likely the Grand Rapids Girls Chorus will be here to sing for us and help us kick off the new year. And we have a members and friends meeting on February 26th, preparing for the next phase of our 2026 campaign of getting out the vote. So please join us. Please stay in tune. And I'm going to introduce.
Wait, next 2 slides.
Oh, gee. I'm doing everything over here. Let's see.
Page down.
There you go.
All right. There will be a No Kings 3.0. I do not know when, but it will be happening. And National Indivisible has promised that they will give us more notification than a month and a half, so that we have time to make sure we have all the resources that we need and get it together so that we can have a successful event.
Ready?
We need volunteers for safety, event planners, and we also need donations for sound system, printing costs, and that sort of thing. So if people are looking for ways that they can donate or they can help, these are things that you can mention to them. At the end of the year, they're looking to get it on their taxes for the end of the year. They can make a small donation. Every little bit helps. And frankly, the money that we have has come through very small donations. I feel like I'm sounding like some of the Democratic politicians, but in fact, it's really about all small donations. $5, $3, $10, and every once in a while we'll get a 25. So encourage people to give. And one more slide, I think. Thanks, Lance. You can sign up for our Substack. There is the QR code. You can get that so that if you don't already get the Substack. Our Facebook page, we're on Blue Sky, and Instagram. You can follow us there. So now I'm going to introduce to you the speaker. This is Lance Werner. He's the director of the Kent District Library. He's an attorney. He's vice chair of the Children's Advocacy Center in Grand Rapids. He's on the Library Michigan Board of Directors, State Library Board of Directors, former president of the Michigan Library Association, and it just goes on and on and on. So who's better skilled and prepared to talk to us about this subject? Thanks, Lance.
Thank you so much. Ooh, it's loud to hold it really close. Whoa, I won't get that close. So good to be here with you this evening. You know, I really believe that the most important thing any of us have is time. You can't buy time, and it seems like there's never enough time. So I always appreciate it when anybody chooses to spend their time with me. I'm here this evening to talk about book challenges, but I do want to take a moment to plug Feeding America. They are a partner for our summer food program, and we've been working with them around the issue of food insecurity, kind of wider food insecurity more recently. We recognize that Michigan's number 44th in the nation on early childhood literacy, and the hungry kids are in no position to really engage with the reading resources that are available. So, you know, hungry kids, I think, is the first hurdle to overcome to start remedying some of these issues that we have around early childhood literacy. So I'm so glad to hear that you're helping them out. And then the second plug I want to do is for Dr. Isley. He's quite a person. He is a local area economist, and he is fascinating. And he talks at the Econ Club. He talks with the Grand Rapids Chamber. He charges them a lot of money. And then he also talks with us sometimes for free. I wouldn't say that, you know, on the record, although I am being recorded. But anyway, great guy. He really knows what he's talking about, and I really encourage you to come on out and see him and hear what he has to say. You know, I was in a meeting earlier tonight over at the Children's Advocacy Center, an executive committee meeting. It was riveting. But one of the things somebody was saying is that we are on the precipice of a Great Depression again. That might be true, I don't know, but Dr. Isley would know. And so these are the types of questions that he can kind of fill in for you. And if you're thinking about your own, whatever you happen to be doing and about your own futures and everything, it's always kind of good to talk to somebody who knows more than you. I'm a great believer in that. Anyway, I was invited here this evening to talk about book challenges. I have quite a lot of experience dealing with book challenges. I'm going to start by telling you a story. A couple of years ago, my family and I went to the Henry Ford. And how many people here have been to the Henry Ford? It is a fantastic, fantastic place to go. They have such an incredible collection. I was walking through the Henry Ford with my family, spring break. Detroit's not the sunniest place to be on spring break, by the way. But anyway, also went to the DIA, which is also a fantastic facility. But I was walking through with my family, and we were in the civil rights section of the Henry Ford. And I was looking at all the pictures. I mean, they had ephemera from Rosa Parks' bust to ephemera from Dr. King and from Cesar Chavez and about the suffrage movement and Malcolm X and all of these pictures of all these people. And it occurred to me when I was looking at those pictures that those people didn't choose to be in those pictures. Those people lived during a time. And it also occurred to me that we don't get to choose history. History chooses us. And so if you want to have rights in the future, then you need to stand for your rights today. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the First Amendment. I was in Detroit. I saw another great bit of graffiti. It said, "Fate favors the fearless." You know? And it really does. I mean, it's important that we all stand up. We all use our voices to protect our freedoms that are guaranteed to us in the Constitution, our civil rights, that permit us to be who we are. Because the nanosecond that we cannot read what we want to read, write what we want to write, say what we want to say, think what we want to think, then we're no longer Americans. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that everybody shows up, and it's important that you're here tonight. And I encourage you to take it forward. I mean, we'll talk at the end about what you might do from a library perspective in doing that. But very, very, very important. You know, it reminds me of another story that I heard. You know, I mean, dealing with this stuff is a little frightening at times. You know, there are people out there that are threatening violence, and they say all kinds of crazy things. My friend Christine Beechler has really been through the ringer. She's a media specialist in Lowell schools. She has a suit that she's moving forward with, but I mean, she's really been threatened by a lot of people. It's scary. It's scary. It reminded me of a story that I heard about a young fighter. I like fighting, which is kind of suits me given the current set of circumstances. But a young fighter who's having a terrible anxiety problem, and the fighter's trainer said to the fighter, he said, the only difference between a hero and a coward is what they do when they're afraid. That fighter was Mike Tyson, and that trainer was Cus D'Amato. And I'm telling you that this is a time for heroes. It's time for people to stand up for what they believe in, to stand up for the rights of other people, to show up for yourself, show up for your neighbors, show up for your kids, show up for people that aren't even born yet. If we want to live in a free country, we got to be here today. So kind of circling back, thinking about where this all kind of started. Listen, book challenges have been around since there have been libraries. We've had book challenges since the earth cooled. I think the oldest library is like 3,000 years old. I think it's in Ethiopia. They've been around forever. It's nothing new. And, there's the cliche that you've heard, a good library has something to offend everyone. Oh, how dynamic. But it's true. It's true. I certainly don't like everything in our library, and that's good, because I really like fishing and boxing. And our collection would be kind of boring for people who aren't into fishing and boxing. But a good collection contains something to offend everyone. What's also true is that the public library is a public house. It's the big table, and everyone who lives in the community has a seat at the big table. And no seat is any greater or lesser than any other seat. Everybody has a voice. Everybody needs to be represented in the collection. Everybody matters. We are the people's house. And that is something that is fundamental to us being open every single day. It is fundamental to who we are as library professionals, and it is fundamental to who we are as Americans. It's the people's house. So it's so critical, particularly when you talk about early childhood literacy, that there's representation, that the kids in our community can see themselves in the collection. They can see things that are relatable to them, that matches their family dynamic, that matches the color of their skin or their religious beliefs or where they live or whatever. It's so important there's representation. And so we take that forward. That's what we do. And so this all kind of started, in my opinion, kind of ramped up, if you will, kind of toward the end of COVID. As you recall, we were dealing with anti-mask people, and you heard the stories about there's kitty litter boxes at the school and all of this like crazy malarkey. And then Moms for Liberty popped up out of Florida, And I think people were kind of inspired by that moment, and they were like, you're pushing the liberal agenda and trying to turn my kids, LGBTQIA with your collection, and it's against Jesus and all this other stuff, right? You heard these things, and so you'd have people come in and they would challenge us on that, They'd say, I have a problem with this book, and they kind of came up with this sort of blanket, it's pornography. Why is it pornography? Well, because there's two males kissing each other in the book, and so it's pornography and things like that. So, there was really two groups, right? Two groups that we're really dealing with here. Two groups, according to me at least. The first group are the true believers. And the true believers are the larger group. And they really believe it. And, hopefully they'll get over believing it, but they do believe it. They believe that it's true. They believe that there's this vast conspiracy and all that QAnon stuff might be true. And they really believe that there's something afoot, some sort of secret society that we're going to try to convert people to whatever our agenda might be. And then the people that are around the true believers are the people that recognize there's a political movement here. And that true believers can be manipulated into following and voting and donating money. So you have political people, and these are the people I'm going to talk more about tonight, that are kind of using the sort of fears of the true believers to control. And we see it right here in sunny Kent County. It happens all the time. In fact, the person that is being sued by Christine Beachler ran for county commission, has run for office several times. So some of the municipal officials will jump on board with this, and they will they'll air these grievances out. People will come to their municipal board, and they'll say, oh, this is smut I found at the library. They're pushing it on my kids. And then sometimes the people from the municipality call and we talk it through. Sometimes they call us to show up, and so we show up. Because remember, I like to fight. So there's that, I don't mind, I'm a lawyer, And if you want to argue with me about the law, go ahead. I got all day. And on this issue, we have the facts and the law on our side. They teach you in law school, if you don't have the facts on your side, argue the law. And if you don't have the law on your side, argue the facts. But in this case, we have the law and the facts on our side. So what we tell everybody is that we really need to have you fill out a form because Moms for Liberty has a whole list. I think it's over 2,000 titles now that are part of the agenda or that need to be banned because of pornography or whatever it is. I'm sorry I'm being a little flip, but I've given this presentation a lot of times and I'm just waiting to not give it anymore. But 2,000 titles. So we tell them, they'll come to us and we'll say, you got to fill out the form. Otherwise, if you don't have them fill out a form, fill out a form more particularly for each title they want to ban and state the reasons why they think it should be banned. We do that so we don't end up with a list of banned books that's 500 books long, which has happened in other libraries, and then they go to search in their collection, and lo and behold, they only own like a third of them. So we want people to actually read what they're trying to get banned. And it's significant that we go through this protocol. And the reason is because the tool that we use to measure whether or not something is in fact considered, and it's not pornography. There's two types of speech in this country that aren't protected by the First Amendment. One of the types of speech isn't protected is obscenity, and I'll talk about that with the Miller test, and things that are considered child pornography. So let's talk about the Miller test. We have them fill out the form because we have to see if it's going to pass the Miller test. Now, here's a spoiler alert. We cannot buy anything that would be considered obscene under the law because it is illegal to have. And since we don't do our collection development on the dark web, we buy from reputable sellers. It is not possible for us to buy things that are obscene. But we go through the process anyway, and so we have to fill it out. We look through it, and then there's three prongs to the Miller test. It's Miller v. California. It was a case that was decided in in the 70s, I believe. And the three prongs are, the item appeals to the prurient interest as judged by the average person applying contemporary community standards. Number two, depicts or describes sexual conduct in a patently offensive way as detailed or as defined by applicable state laws. And three, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Now, in order for something to fail the Miller test, it has to fail all three prongs. And what's notable is when you start talking about a reasonable person standard that's talking about the Miller test, what I've run into is I've had people say, I got on Facebook and all my friends agree this is porn. That doesn't get it done. That's not the way it works. It's a community standard. So what we do when we get those book challenges is we take them and we look up the reviews. And if there are reviews of the book, then it has been professionally, kind of anointed as being something that has artistic and literary value. And that's why we always look up the reviews. And so I don't think anybody here has, but if you ever tried to get a book banned at KDL, what happens is you get a letter back, and we'll talk about the reviews in the letter, and we talk about the reviews in the letter because that satisfies the Miller test. And then, of course, there's things that are considered child pornography. I'm here to tell you we don't have that either. Now, some people will say, well, there's a picture in here that's dirty, and some of the books have some pretty spicy pictures. I'm not going to lie about that. But it's a picture in a book. It's not the entire book. It's not the whole book full of pictures. Here's 1,000 pages of penises, folks, right? It's not what we're talking about here, right? And actually, not that I endorse it or anything, but Larry Flint's magazine collection, Hustler, wasn't found to be obscene. So do you really think the library books, the books you have in the library are going to make the Miller test? I mean, if that stuff doesn't make it, you think that what we have is going to, no. It's not going to be considered obscene under the Miller test. So we have them fill out the form. Then usually, if there's an issue with the municipality, they'll go back to the municipality and say the library didn't help me. And then they'll call me to come talk with them. And I do. So the first way to deal with this is, as I said before, we have the law and the facts on our side, is to deal with it. That's your primary argument on the law and the facts. And the fact of the matter is all the municipal officials and me have taken an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, the laws of this country, and the laws of this state. And that includes not violating the First Amendment and pointing out to people that the First Amendment is the amendment that we're talking about here, because the right to read is something that the court has found is in the First Amendment. Of course, the First Amendment was adopted in 1791. It's been around for a long time, and there's a reason why it's the First Amendment, to guarantee people freedom of speech. So the primary argument is always going to be the Constitution. And we can talk about the item. You know, and a lot of times people say things like, well, what do you think of it? What I think of it is irrelevant. It's not really part of the conversation. I don't decide, if something's good or bad. I don't have that authority. It's a constitutional issue. So I don't go out and, start defending things, because that's too subjective. Why would I? My better argument is defending the law and the facts. And the law says it has to fail the Miller test, and the facts have to support that. And that's really the end of it, but it's never the end of it. Okay, so that brings us to the next argument, and those are the common sense arguments. And I've had this before, and I've made people mad about it, but sometimes you just got to make people mad if you're doing the right thing. Fate favors the fearless. I'm here to fight for everybody's rights, and you just got to do what you got to do. And so you start making common sense arguments. Then they go something like this. So if you're a parent, or you can remember when you had kids at home, and they were watching something on TV that you thought was horrible, and you didn't want them to watch it, did you make them watch it? No. You turn the channel, right? Or if you're driving down the highway and you see a billboard that you think is terrible, and your kid's in the car with you, do you make them look at it? Nope, you don't. Or if you're listening to the radio and a song comes on and you don't want your kids to hear it, you make them listen to that? Nope. Or your kids are out on the internet, and they're on their phone or something. Chances are, most people have had a conversation with their kids about what's going to work and what's not going to work. These are all common sense arguments. Usually by the end of this, I'm not really popular with the municipal board, but they get over it. But they usually give up, which is good, because the conversation's essentially over. And then I go my way and they go their way. Sometimes they'll have people that will yell. I've had that happen. And we've actually had people come in and challenge books to our library board, and come and basically ask us to pull all the books off the shelf that had anything to do with LGBTQIA topics, because, that was sin and bad news. And per the Open Meetings Act, they get a chance to speak. And we gave them their chance to speak, and then they got their 3 minutes, and then they left. And that was the end of that. The other thing that we also believe at KDL in particular is that things that you give energy have energy. And so we're not always quick to run out there and make a big spectacle out of everything. We address the issues we feel we need to address, no more, no less. We don't ignore things, but we're not out there rallying around and, waving flags and getting crazy with it. We're really there to be good stewards of the collection, to protect people's amendments, their First Amendment rights, their civil rights, and ensure that they have the materials that they want in the collection that are representative of them. I also make the argument about the library being the big table, and that everybody has a seat at the table, and there needs to be representation in the collection. Whether somebody likes it or not is irrelevant. There needs to be representation in the collection. And so that's another conversation that I have with people. So, you might be thinking, well, this is all fine and well, and, I feel good about it, but what do I do? And you probably are thinking that. I'll tell you what you do. Get involved. Get involved. I've done a lot of things in my life, and I've done a lot of things in my career, but the most important work that I've ever done is this work here. This work, standing up for these rights. I would rather not, there's nothing else I'd rather do than be here now. This is my chance to live history. I got called, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to show up, and I would ask all of you to do the same thing. Show up. Show up. If a call goes out that there's going to be an issue talking about the First Amendment at a municipal meeting, and they're going to be talking about a title in your local library, in your local municipality, show up. Tell them what you think about that. Maybe you're in favor of it, maybe not. Show up, be a part of it. Get on library boards, be a part of the friends groups, get your library card, be involved. Terrible things happen in quiet places. Let's not be quiet. The only difference between a hero and a coward is what they do when they're afraid. This is the time of heroes. And I'm looking at a room full of heroes. When you get to your last moment and you're laying on your deathbed and thinking about your life, I guarantee you're going to be glad that you showed up. I know I am. Like I said, it's the most important thing I ever did. And it'll be the most important thing I ever do. And I encourage you to do the same. So get involved. Show up to meetings, get involved with the friends groups. Be there. Pay attention to what people say. Finally, my last point. I would invite all of you to write down the names of people that are in elected office that support book challenges. Write those names down. Because I think it would be terrible if they were lost to history. Those people have political aspirations, and I think it's important to remember that they chose to take away everybody else's civil rights for their own personal political gain. That is not right. I don't think we just let that one pass. You don't get a mulligan for that. You can't take away people's civil rights because you want a higher office. That's not okay. Or to be popular, or to get campaign donations or whatever. That's not okay. These folks took an oath. And we got to hold their feet to the fire. So don't forget who they are. When this is all over and the dust settles, don't forget who they are. And I would encourage you to hold them accountable. You know, don't vote for them next time. Unless you think that's okay, then do vote for them. But I'm not going to vote for people that take away civil rights, because I think it's terrible. It makes me think about all those people in those pictures and all the struggle they went through. And, you know, the struggle's real. There's a line in the movie Fury where Brad Pitt says, ideals are peaceful, history is violent. You know, and sometimes you got to stand up and do the hard thing. Anyway, I get a little fired up when I talk about this stuff. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I'm happy to answer any questions, maybe poorly, but I'll do my best. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Other question?
I have a couple of questions. One, how do we know when these meetings are taking place and whether there's something more controversial on the agenda?
You can check the agendas of the meetings, and you also can be involved with your library friends groups. We have 17 of them in ours. So the Kent District Library serves the entire county except for the city of Grand Rapids, Cedar Springs, and Solon Township. We have 20 branches, and 17 of them have friends groups. The friends are all aware of it. The regional managers that are in charge of those branches are aware of what's going on and communicate what's going on. So through the library usually can give you information, the friends groups can usually give you information, or you can get online and check the agendas and see what's happening. A lot of times people show up during public comment and with just a general grievance. It's hard to be there for those moments, but if there's some sort of structured challenge to library materials, I think that'll be posted. It should be something that's in there. So, and again, the library will definitely be able to tell you. Good news, by the way, this political movement around banning books is losing a lot of steam. We're seeing less challenges now on LGBTQI, pornography, those types of things than we used to. It still happens. Lately, I think the worst thing that I've seen is I have people trying to get displays banned or books banned because the author's LGBTQIA, and they take umbrage with that. And no, I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same. But that'd be my best recommendation for you.
Okay, I do have another question. You described the process for the Kent County District Libraries. Do the school libraries have a similar process when a book is challenged?
I don't have a good answer for you, and I've heard great stories and sad stories, and I think that it's different from school to school, and they have a different legal duty than we do. So the schools are legally required to act in loco parentis, which means in the shoes of the parent, to be responsible for the kids and to, support their curriculum. The library is the house of the people. Our requirements are not to act in loco parentis. We don't choose to do that. We encourage parents to be in the space of their kids if they have concerns about what the kids are reading, and to be involved with their own kids. So the school's burdens are different than the public library's burdens.
Thank you.
Questions? Oh, I'm coming over.
Oh, okay. You want me to wait? Are you recording it?
Yeah.
It might be a rather mundane question. I'm a KDL card holder. So
when we talk about your hierarchy, who you answer to, every place you have a branch, that municipal council works with you, or
They interact. So the municipalities own the buildings, but they don't have any control over the service that we provide.
Okay.
Actually, the people of Kent County actually control the library through the board.
Is the county commission also over you in some ways?
No, they appoint our board members.
Okay.
And that's really all they do. But we also report to them too because they represent the people. At the end of the day, the body that controls the Kent District Library are the people that live in this jurisdictional service area, true house of the people.
All right, got it.
I did want to mention one other thing. You might ask yourself, how do they get the books on the shelves? Let me tell you. So we buy off of popular materials list. We're a popular materials library. And so we buy books that we think are going to be popular, bestsellers, things of that nature, popular authors, and so on and so forth. We also get books based on people's requests. And so if somebody from the public who lives in our jurisdictional service area asks us for a particular title, we'll make every effort to get it. There's some criteria that need to be met, but in general, we try to get it. Now, the books that you find on the shelf are there because people are checking them out. That's how we kind of balance the collection between branches. We don't have a uniform collection that goes into every branch. Things that are on library shelves, and understand that shelf space is at a premium. Shelf space is a sacred thing. We want to have things on the shelf that are going to circulate. And so if things don't circulate, then they get shipped to another branch. And if they don't circulate at all, then they get weeded out, and then we send them to other places. Usually donate them, or things of that nature, the library shelf at the airport. And so that's kind of how we get it. And so when people say, well, nobody in my community wants gender queer, and it's like, well, it's on the shelf, and we looked and it circulated 12 times last month, so that is not true. Because if it wasn't circulating, it wouldn't be on your shelf. That's how the system's built. The system is built to reflect the community. That's the whole point of it. House of the people. We want you to read whatever you want to read. We don't need you to read what we want you to read. And in my case, I'd be fishing books and stuff about boxing.
Go ahead.
They'd be dumb to do it, but does anybody ever just check it out and just never return it because they object to it?
And then we send them a bill.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yep. Yeah. And then we can send them to collections. So,
I have a question.
yes.
House Bill 4250, setting procedure for book challenges, passed the House and sent to the Senate. Is it stalled?
Yeah, I think it's stalled out. We're working on that. I'm also part of a couple of advocacy groups, national advocacy groups and state level advocacy groups. In the state currently, there's the My Right to Read, but there's also the Freedom to Read initiative, which I'm part of, and that is something that I'm working with lobbyists, with Penguin Random House, and so we're trying to get some of that stuff passed. More than anything, and I got to tell you, there was never a moment in my life when I was in law school or in library school where I thought I'd be spending a lot of time trying to protect people's First Amendment rights, but hey, here we are. But we're trying to get some of those protections in place, for everybody. At the same time, I've had, Kirk Cameron's got a series of books that's anti-LGBTQIA, anti-trans, they're the Brave series, and we have those books too, and they circulate. And Kirk Cameron's people called me and they said, we want to have a reading thing in the branch. And I said, go ahead. I mean, we're not sponsoring it, but anybody can come in the branch and read whatever you want to read. It's the public house. I don't need to thumb up or thumb down whatever you're doing. I mean, as long as it's not something that's just illegal, no gun shows. But, yeah, it's the public house. So we really do try to represent everybody.
I read somewhere that the book bans are down, but that it was because there was self-censorship going on at the libraries. Like those books were just pulled off the shelves.
It does happen. Not at KDL, but it does happen. So I've heard of that, and I've heard of that a lot in the schools, actually, more than anywhere.
So is it truly that book banning is losing steam, or is more of that happening?
I can't speak to the schools. I can say in the public library arena, I would say that the number of book bans that are occurring that are based on LGBTQIA, sort of Moms for Liberty purposes, has come down. We still get book challenges, though. I got a book challenge the other day because it was too violent, so the sword fighting was too vigorous in it. And the person who was challenging it didn't think it was appropriate for teenage boys. So,
Was it Three Musketeers?
yeah, I don't know what it was. I can't remember the title. Anyway, I mean, these things happen.
You have a question?
Yeah, kind of riffing off of what she was saying as far as, have you noticed that the outrage seems to go with the election cycle? Because it seems
Yep.
to me that, it gets whipped up.
It does.
And then, the librarians are in the crosshairs.
Yep.
And then, so trying to be a vigilant citizen so that it kind of nips it in the bud. Some tips.
No, I
please.
think that it does track, and quite often you'll find people that are the leaders of these sort of movements locally. You'll be running for office, in fact. Not successfully, but running for office. Yeah, so yeah, there's a track, for
So
sure.
being able to, what should we do to kind of make that voice not, to make it less likely that they're going to get away with it?
I think the most important thing any of us can do is to ask the tough questions of candidates, so they do happen to be candidates. I mean, what is your stance on banning books? What is your stance on First Amendment freedoms? I actually think that we should advocate to support the entire Constitution. I think that there can be policies, but I think we need to support the whole Constitution. So ask them that. You can lead in, we need to support the entire Constitution. Specifically, I'm interested to hear what your viewpoints are on banning books in public library spaces and in schools.
Good, so show up and be
Yep,
be that
show up.
voice so that they're not just thinking that.
Bad things
they
happen
can't-
in quiet.
All right.
Let's not be quiet. Let's not do anybody any favors. I mean, these are your elected officials. They represent you, so it's important that they represent you. And it's important that you're involved. It really is.
But I mean, even us on our Facebook pages and stuff like that, of kind of putting it out there yeah, I support the whole Constitution. I think
I don't-
sometimes that might nip it in the bud too.
It might. I don't really do a lot. We have a good social media team at KDL. But we don't really go down those things. I don't put a lot of things on Facebook other than pictures of fish. I know it's a huge surprise at this point. and camping pictures, and occasionally my dog. I don't argue with people on Facebook because I am committed to being serene and having gratitude in my life. I just feel like arguing on social media with people is just soul-sucking dreck. So I don't do it. I mean, again, if that's your thing, I go for it. But I mean, I don't do it. I don't put my political views out there. I put fishing and dogs because I love fishing and dogs. And I come when people summon me, pretty much.
So kind of stay in real life.
Yep. Yeah, but I'm not afraid to ask a candidate a tough question.
But that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
real life.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's kind of the show up.
Well, I mean, you ask somebody live, personally, face-to-face, a tough question in a candidate forum. That's different than kind of, sitting and thinking about how you're going to respond, and maybe even running your response through Chat GPT and showing it to your friend and doing a little research and then responding. You catch them flat-footed in a forum, I mean, you're really going to hear what they got to say. They're either not going to, if they believe that and they don't want to answer the question, they're not going to answer the question. They're going to try to pivot, or maybe they'll just tell you, no, I think we should ban books and get the pornography out of libraries. That's one thing that really bothered me, especially, all of it bothers me, but everything is pornography. So if it's a story about, Latinx children, it's pornography. Or if it's, everything is pornography. Everything is pornography. If it's about, a different group of people, young African, it's pornography. If it's about, Caesar shop, it's pornography. It's all pornography. And I think that's so gross. I mean, do better. I mean, it's not pornography, and there's nothing pornographic or obscene about it. But you lump everything into pornography. And then you start accusing, the library is trying to groom people. Oh my God. I can't believe it. It's just crazy. Yeah.
One last question. Any questions? All right, we're going to have a drawing. for someone's going to get a book.
Oh, I'm quoted. My friend wrote this book, Nicole Lintonmuth. And actually, Christina is on our board, and Christina knows Nicole as well. Christina is well aware of my love for fishing and dogs. I think it's on page 98. I have a little quote in there. But anyway, am I drawing it out? Yep. My quote was, attempts to ban speech and thought inspire us to fight harder, which probably isn't a surprising quote for you at this point.
Why don't you do the honors of picking who's going to get this book?
Okay. I only have one?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and apologize ahead of time. Tom Okapidi. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
There you go.
Listen, I love you guys. Thanks for your time this evening. Keep up the good fight. Never get up. They can't beat us if we don't quit. Thank you.